the script for the series overall that really convinced you to appear on the show?
Well, I knew about the project for a while. I had auditioned for the pilot and another part after the show was picked up, and so I knew the pedigree of the show and the kind of show it was going to be, and I knew it was on cable, and all of that appealed to me. Um, the I guess the odd answer to your story is I didn't know what I was going to be playing right away. Because I had gone into audition for Paul, which is the guy she sleeps with at the bar that she just picks up. And, it was just basically auditioning as a charming, normal dude. And I did that, and they called and said, it's not you, but we might have something we want you to do next week. And I just thought that was kind of a joke. And then they called the next week and said, sure enough, here's this job. And we said, great, what's the part? And they said, we can't tell you. And they wouldn't tell my agents or my managers, and they wanted to have a meeting with me in person. And it took I don't know, a week or a week and a half to actually sit down and have this meeting. But that's when they finally told me, this is what you're doing. And I basically had to accept the part before I knew that. But what I did know was that it was a sizable part, and it was on a show that looked like it was going to really do well on a great network with smart people running it. So I sort of picked my family before I understood exactly what I was going to be doing, but it looked like a safe bet.
And on the show, David is a former FBI agent, and he also impersonates Kenneth, who's a colleague of Alma overall. So, what's the process really of going back and forth, playing both characters overall, and getting into the mindset of both of them on the show overall?
The interesting thing I found in research I did about sociopathic people or serial killers or whatever was one of the most common traits about them was that they were incredibly charming, and almost charismatic, and they have this ability to gain people's trust. The other thing that I read on a consistent basis was that there was often two different people. You'd have the guy you'd meet at the bar or wherever they picked these folks up, and it was one guy, and then a few of the people who survived these encounters would say, the minute we got back home and he tied me to this chair, it was a completely different person that came out of him. And it really is. I think it helped me justify playing these two people and then helping maintaining the belief that it was still one person, because they just use the tools really that they need to gain people's trust and to get them where they need to be. And then once they have control over them, this ugly lizard-like being comes out of these guys. But so that was sort of nice to have permission to know that in this moment with Alma, all I have to be is her best friend. That's all I have to be. And once I get her somewhere else, then I can luxuriate in being this other thing that I have to be. But it was a really interesting line to walk. You don't often get to do that in television a whole lot. So it was a lot of fun.
And speaking of the research, what was that process like before you actually began filming, and how did you really get into the mindset of both David and Kenneth overall, considering that David is a former FBI agent? So, what was that process like overall?
Well, the FBI agent side of things and his overall intelligence is just it's a large basis for the character in general. Like he's smart enough to outsmart people. He's smart enough to know enough to shut down the power on the bridge. He's incredibly bright. So there's a calculated quality to that kind of person. And then I found people that were also killers and that level of calculatedness. I found a guy actually really early on in an interview on 60 Minutes. I think his name is Charles Cullen, and he was a nurse at a hospital, and he murdered like 35 people or something while he was a nurse there. And there was this very quiet, sedate, sort of cold-bloodedness about him. But at the same time, he looked kind of like a normal guy. And if you talk to him on the street, you might think he was a little odd, but you wouldn't think he was a serial killer. And so, that's sort of what I leaned into was that kind of idea, this sort of cold, calculated, multi-layered person who, has little switches within them that they just throw to become the charming person, and then you throw the switch to become the killer. And but I have all these little tools and tricks I use. I have music I listen to that sort of gets my head in a certain space, and pictures. I have a lot of pictures of that gentleman, that his eyes. They're just little tools that I've learned over time mean something to me. But basically, it's about this surgery, like the surgical precision of these people that was really interesting to me, and also the lack of emotion. There's a lot of studies that have been done that say there's actually something wrong with the brains of many serial killers. Their frontal lobe doesn't function the way others do, and that's there's two parts to the brain damage. One is a lack of being able to control your instincts or act on anger and rage, and the other part of the damage has to do with empathy and sympathy, and they just, when they kill someone, don't really understand or feel it the same way we would. And it's the same thing with fear. There's not the same processing that goes on of fear. So, I tried to look at it from a medical standpoint as well as an emotional one and an intellectual one, and you put it all together and you see what kind of pie you get out of it.
The show is based on the Danish TV series of the same name. So, were you at all familiar with the original series, or watch it at all before you began filming the FX show overall?
I did. When I first auditioned for the pilot, I did some internet sleuthing and found it. And I was just going to watch a couple episodes just to get the feel of what the original show was about. And the original was so good, I just kept watching it. So I watched the entire series of the original one. And thankfully, the guy I ended up playing in the original, I don't feel any similarities with, and so it didn't really interfere with the way I was going to play Kenneth/David. But I'm just someone who likes all the information I can get. So if there's some research out there I can do, I go get it, and then I throw it away or I use it later. But yeah, the original is very good. It is. It really is. It's a totally different feel. Because of the gray coldness of Denmark and Sweden. It's and there's a sensibility about that culturally as well. So it really is just the basis of a story for me. But I'm glad I watched it.
And the FX series that you're on features a pretty diverse cast, including like Diane Kruger and Matthew Lillard. So, what's it like working with them on the show overall, and how did you really maybe build your working relationships with your co-stars overall?
That's one of my favorite things is when you get a job and you sort of form these new families with the different crews you work with, and it was a little odd on this one because I couldn't tell anyone. After Elwood told me I was the killer, I was also instructed not to tell anyone on the set or the cast or the crew. And a lot of my stuff early on was literally just with Catalina, or I was alone making one of these phone calls. So I was really kind of separate from the cast for a long time. I'd see people in makeup, and we would gradually get to know each other at table reads or whatever. But it took a while for me, just because I was kind of removed from the situation pretty early on. But getting past that and getting to know everybody, I think the world of the entire crew. It never felt like a big fancy television show. It always felt like a student film or something much more personal and easygoing, and all the actors on the show. I just think the casting is so superb, and I really credit Elwood and Meredith for going out on a limb, here and there, because there's people in there that I think a lot of people have never seen, and who give knock it out of the ballpark performances. So from Matt, Diane, Johnny Dowers, and Carlos, and just the whole cast is really, everybody I think fits their role so perfectly. It's really an honor to be among them on the show.
And the show has garnered pretty positive reviews, and was even one of the 6 shows that in June was named the Critics' Choice Television Award for most exciting new series. So, what was that experience like of getting the award and knowing that critics and fans are embracing the show overall?
Oh, it was exciting when I heard that, and I mean, we got this one of the Entertainment Weekly covers, and we were the only new show of the summer to get that, and lots of critical praise early on, and it's great. The cynic in me then just goes, oh gosh, now we really have to every week has to deliver. It's a little bit of a pressure on you at the same time to know that people are expecting a lot. I mean, they had these great promos for the show for months before the show even started airing, and the promos were so good. It was like, this show better be great. And then the critics chimed in, and everyone was very positive about it. And the show's taken turns for sure that I think some people have been disappointed, frustrated, or confused by. But what I've always liked about what they do on the bridge is that I've always said it's sort of like a dinner party that you're invited to by a chef, and you don't know the menu and you don't know what you're eating or who will be there. But by the end of the meal, I think you'll feel honored that you were there. And so, with the pacing of the show and how it moves and how they introduce characters and that they take their time and there's subtitles, there's a lot of stuff they do that is unconventional next to other television shows, and I think it's earned a lot of people's respect, and at the same time I think it's frustrated a lot of people because up till the very end it's going to do exactly what it wants to do, and I think we all just hope that everybody comes along with us for the ride. But yeah, it's a very ballsy show in that way, and I really like that about it. I respect that.
And speaking of the end of the first season, the season finale is coming up. You have 3 more episodes left of the season. So, are there any particular details about the remainder of the season that you can really discuss overall?
Well, they have me on all these legal disclaimers and keep my mouth shut contracts. It's nice. So I'll tread lightly, but I mean, Gus is in a tanker filling with water. Matthew Lillard or Daniel Fry is somewhere under my control, and Marco's in the car with me. So it's I think it's a plan that has been formulating for many years now, and finally all the chess pieces are in place. And I think what you're going to see on Wednesday is quite the showdown with all the players involved. So that's as far as I'll be able to tiptoe on that.
And besides the bridge, you've appeared on several different television shows over the course of your career, like both on cable and on network TV as well. So, what is it about TV in general that you really enjoy appearing on so often?
Well, I mean, for me, it's just sort of partly it's just where I've ended up. I do movies, but not as frequently, and television's just the medium that I've gotten the most work in, and I'm at this point still just I'm a worker bee. I audition, I go out there and get what I can and make the best of it. But I do like television. It's quick. It's your guest starring. It's only 8 days and you're done. And if it's 8 days, and, I like the schedule that you shoot a certain number of episodes and then you have time off. And it's immediate. You see it so much sooner than you see a movie. That being said, I'm fully hoping to use any television work I can get to help channel some more work into films, because I've that's sort of what started my whole. I was a theater major in college, but when I decided to move to California, it's because I've always been in love with movies. So I'm just grateful that while I'm in TV is experiencing such a golden age of these great shows. I think from The Sopranos on to Breaking Bad now, the bar has been raised so high, and I'm just really excited to be a part of wherever that goes, and trying to enjoy my present gig as well.
And speaking of movies, I was going to actually ask you, do you have an interest in maybe when you're on maybe hiatus from the bridge doing a movie like in between seasons? Is that something you'd be interested in doing again?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love to work. I don't do well when I'm not working. So I'm always I always have my ear open and my eyes open for for the next thing. Uh, so yeah, I'd love to roll into a movie. You know, there's you audition for things. You know, you read things, but the next project sometimes takes a minute to fully form and to get to you. So absolutely, yeah. From your mouth to God's ears, I have a I'm open to a movie.
And speaking of moving to California, the bridge was filmed in well, the first season was filmed in El Paso. So what was that experience like of shooting the show in Texas as opposed to maybe in filming in LA overall?
Oh well, it was actually just the pilot that filmed in El Paso and Tijuana. The rest of the episodes we shot in LA.
And besides the bridge, I just wanted to ask you as well. Do you have any upcoming projects lined up? Whether maybe other guest starring appearances or films that you can discuss?
Yeah, I just worked on a film called Imagined with Al Pacino and Bobby Cannavale and Annette Bening. I played Bobby Cannavale's doctor in that. So I finished that up right after we wrapped the bridge actually. So that's the only piece of news I have right now is in terms of something coming out next. I'm sure something will happen on television before then, but because I don't think it's out until next year. But right now, that's the next thing I've done.
Okay, that was my last question actually, but thank you very much for your time.